I stared at the Instagram post, my thumb hovering over the screen like it could somehow erase what I was seeing. There they were, my parents, smiling, relaxed, standing on a cruise ship deck with tropical drinks in their hands. Next to them, my brother, Nathan. The golden boy. The one who never has it easy. The one they took on the $12,000 vacation I paid for. Not a single message. Not even a thank you. I was supposed to be on that trip. I spent months planning it, maxed out a credit card, postponed my own move. I thought it was going to be our family's fresh start. Instead, they packed their bags, left me behind, and took him. No one told me. No one thought I needed to know. And the worst part? They still haven't said sorry. Have you ever given everything to family, only to realize they never saw you as part of it? Tell me in the comments, have you ever been the one left behind? People always say you can't choose your family, but I think I spent my whole life trying to earn mine. Growing up in suburban Ohio, in a beige two-story house with a picket fence and a swing set in the backyard, we looked like the perfect family from the outside. My mom, Denise, was a nurse who always smelled like hand sanitizer and peppermint gum. My dad, Thomas, worked at the post office, quiet, routine-oriented, the kind of man who called dinner supper and still used a paper map. And then there was Nathan, 2 years younger than me, but you'd never guess it the way the world revolved around him. He had asthma when we were kids, and I think somewhere along the line, that diagnosis turned into a personality. Fragile, sensitive, handle with care. I loved him, I really did, but even at 8, I noticed how the rules were just different for him. Like when we both spilled juice on the couch. I got grounded. Nathan got a hug. Or when we fought, he cried. I explained. They scolded me. But I tried not to take it personally. I figured every family had a favorite, and I told myself mine just needed more from me. So I became the helper, the overachiever, the fixer. At 11, I was packing my own lunch, and his too. At 14, I was babysitting to help with bills. At 16, I bought my own prom dress and Nathan's video game console. And when I got my first part-time job at the diner down the street, I used my tips to buy groceries when the fridge was looking empty. Not once did I complain. Not even when Mom said, "You're such a good girl, Emily, Nathan's lucky to have you." It never felt like I was lucky to have anyone. Still, I stayed hopeful. I told myself that one day, when I was older and had my own money, I'd do something special for all of us. A big gesture. Something that would finally make me feel like I belonged. And then that opportunity came. 3 years ago, after saving for nearly a year, I surprised my parents with an anniversary vacation idea, a luxury cruise through the Caribbean. It was supposed to be a thank you, a way to reconnect, a way to be seen. I pitched it with a giant smile at the kitchen table. I'll cover it. Flights, cruise tickets, everything. You guys have done so much. I just want to give you something back. They looked surprised, sure. But not the kind of surprised I expected. More like confused. My mom smiled politely. That's generous, honey. But are you sure you can afford that? I remember laughing. I'll make it work. And I did. Side hustles, overtime shifts, canceled plans. I made it work. But looking back now, and this hurts to admit, I think I always knew that no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. I just didn't know how cruel it could actually get. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always show up like thunder. Sometimes, it's just a slow, quiet erosion. 1,000 tiny cracks you learn to walk around until the ground gives out completely. After I offered to pay for the vacation, things shifted in small, weird ways. At first, I brushed it off. Like how my mom would refer to it as Nathan's idea in conversations. "Oh, it was Nathan who said you two could use a break," she told my aunt on the phone. I was right there in the room, and I'd been the one who pitched the whole thing. He just nodded during the conversation. But somehow he got the credit. I remember thinking, weird. But maybe she just misspoke. Then came the planning. I wanted it to be perfect. I spent hours comparing cruise packages, booking the flights, choosing excursions. I even made a shared document so everyone could see the itinerary. My parents never clicked it. Nathan changed the name of the folder to Nathan's Gift. I called him out gently. "Hey, Why'd you rename the file? He shrugged. You said it doesn't matter who gets credit, right? It's for them. I swallowed it. Like always. Like I had since we were kids. When we'd meet for dinner to talk details, my dad would direct every question to Nathan. Did you pick the balcony cabin or interior? I did, I said. But Dad was already nodding at Nathan, as if I didn't speak. It was like I became invisible, a wallet with legs. And then came the moment that really stuck. A week after I paid the deposit, I was at my parents' house, helping fix their old desktop computer again. Nathan strolled in mid-task, holding a smoothie. Mom looked up and beamed. Oh, honey, you look tired. Want me to make you a plate? He said, Nah, I'm good. She still brought him one. Then, out of nowhere, she said to me, You know, it's really sweet what you're doing. But it's not about showing off, right? It's about love. I stared at her. Of course. Why would I be showing off? She tilted her head. Well, I just hope you're not trying to prove something. You don't need to buy us. Buy them? I was speechless. I never heard them say anything like that when Nathan got his third loan from them to fix his car money he never repaid. I think that was the first time I felt a true stab in my chest. Not just confusion hurt. But again, I let it go. I was always the one who let it go. Weeks passed. My bank account drained slowly. Each payment chipped away at my savings, but I told myself it was worth it. This would be our moment. Finally. Then, 3 weeks before the departure date, I got a call. It was Nathan. Hey, so Mom and Dad were talking, and we were thinking maybe it'd be easier if just the three of us went. I blinked. Wait, what? You know, you're working a lot. You've got your apartment stuff. And honestly, you hate boats. I sat in silence. He continued, It'd just be more relaxing for them. You'll still be listed as the primary payer, of course, so you'll get all the travel insurance emails and stuff. But this way, it's less complicated. Less complicated? I laughed. Not out of humor, out of disbelief. Nathan, are you seriously suggesting I don't go on the vacation I paid for? There was a pause. Then he said it. Well, it's not like you need it, Em. You're not as close with them as I am. That line? It hit me like a brick. Not as close? I hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just sat there, stunned, feeling like a guest in my own life. In the days that followed, I waited for my parents to say something. To call. To ask what had happened. But all I got was a single text from my mom. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay. We understand. Nathan can take your spot. You need rest too. Love you. No fight. No question. Just easy acceptance, as if I was disposable. I stared at my screen for a long time that night. $12,000. That's how much I paid to confirm my worth to them. And apparently, that's also how much it cost them to leave me behind. The day they left. I still remember the weather. It was one of those early spring mornings in Ohio where the sky pretends it's going to be sunny, but by noon, it's gray again. I'd just gotten home from a long night shift. My body ached, and my inbox was flooded with promotional cruise emails, countdowns, last-minute reminders, bon voyage banners I couldn't bear to delete. I hadn't responded to Mom's text from a few days earlier. I didn't know how to. What do you even say to your parents when they quietly agree you're not wanted? But I wasn't ready to believe they'd actually go through with it. That morning, I drove to their house. Not to beg. Just to see. Just to confirm, in some twisted way, that it wasn't what I thought it was. I pulled into their driveway and immediately saw 3 suitcases lined up at the door. My chest tightened. Inside, I could hear the hum of excitement. Laughing. The kind of laugh that used to fill our living room on holidays, except this time, I wasn't part of it. I rang the bell. Nathan opened the door. His face dropped. Oh. Hey. I looked past him. My mom was zipping up her suitcase. Dad was double-checking printed boarding passes like it was 1999. They didn't even look surprised to see me. I stepped inside. So, that's real? Mom stood up, smiling tightly. Emily, we didn't think you'd come by. I paid for this trip, I said, my voice cracking. With my money, my savings, my time. You didn't even ask me. Dad cleared his throat. We thought you'd be happier not dealing with the travel. You always say boats make you nauseous. I laughed, stunned. So that's your excuse? Nausea? Nathan chimed in from behind me. Don't make this dramatic. It's just a trip. A trip? My hands trembled. $12,000. 12,000. That's 2 months of rent. That's the car I wanted to buy. That's my life handed to you. And you didn't even call me. Silence. Mom stepped forward. We're not ungrateful, sweetie. But we're doing what's best for everyone. Best for everyone. That phrase it echoed in my skull like a church bell. Best for everyone except me. I looked around the living room. Every photo on the wall had all 4 of us. Family game nights, birthday cakes, Halloween costumes. Proof of a life I thought was shared. But now? Now I realized I'd always been a side character in their story. Something in me broke. I pulled out a manila envelope from my purse. Inside was every receipt, the cruise confirmation, the excursion add-ons, the flight invoices. I dropped it on the coffee table. If you're going to take my gift and erase me from it, then have the decency to acknowledge what you did. Mom didn't even open the envelope. She just picked up her purse. We're going to miss our flight. I looked at her one last time, hoping for something. Guilt, sadness, regret. But she wouldn't even meet my eyes. Dad walked toward the door. And Nathan? He patted my arm as he passed. I'll bring you back a souvenir. I didn't cry on the drive home. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. It was only hours later, when I sat on my apartment floor, staring at a photo of the 3 of them from the cruise. Nathan with his arms around both of them, Mom's sunglasses tilted like she was mid-laugh, that I collapsed. There was a tightness in my throat I couldn't explain. My body curled into itself, rocking, sobbing like a child. I wasn't crying over the money. I wasn't even crying about the trip. I was mourning something I'd clung to for 32 years. The idea that if I just tried hard enough, they'd choose me back. The next day, I got a postcard in the mail. It had a dolphin on the front, jumping out of turquoise water. On the back, it said, "Wish you were here. Love, Mom, Dad, and Nathan." That postcard is still in a drawer. Not because I treasure it, but because sometimes you need the scar to remember the wound. They returned on a Sunday. I knew because Nathan posted an airport selfie with a caption, "Home from paradise. Time to detox and decompress." And my mother commented, "Best trip ever. Love you, sweetheart." There was no tag for me. No message. No souvenir. Just silence. For a week, I didn't speak to them. I deleted every cruise email, every notification, blocked Nathan's stories. But the silence wasn't healing, it was heavy. Like a stone pressing on my lungs. I wasn't ready to move on. Not without answers. Not without telling them what they'd done. So, I made a decision. I wrote a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real, pen on paper, tear-stained letter. I spent hours at my kitchen table, curled over a yellow legal pad. The words poured out like a wound opening everything I'd swallowed for decades. Dear Mom and Dad, I hope the trip was everything you wanted. I truly do. But this letter isn't about the cruise. It's about me. You raised me to be kind, to give without expecting, to love without question. But somewhere along the way, I started mistaking love for tolerance and tolerance for silence. I stayed silent when Nathan lied, and you believed him. I stayed silent when I paid your bills and you gave him credit. I stayed silent when I booked your dream trip, and you left me behind. But silence is not love. And what you did was not love either. You didn't just exclude me from a vacation. You erased me from a moment I created. You took my gift and made it look like I didn't exist. I've spent 32 years trying to prove I was worthy of being chosen. But I'm done performing for scraps. This isn't anger. It's clarity. I will always wish you well. But I will no longer fund the fantasy that this family sees me as anything but useful. I am stepping back. Not to punish, but to protect. Goodbye for now. Emily. I sealed the envelope. No glitter, no stickers, no smiley faces like the ones I used to add to cards as a kid. Just my name on the back, in small black ink. I dropped it in their mailbox and walked away. They didn't respond right away. But then 3 days later the doorbell rang. It was Nathan. He didn't look apologetic. He looked annoyed. Really, Em? A letter? That's how you're going to handle this? I stared at him from the threshold. You took my seat on that ship, Nathan. He rolled his eyes. You said you were busy. You always act like a martyr. Because I am a martyr in this family, I snapped. And you know it. His face hardened. You've always been dramatic. You want a trophy because you paid for something? Congrats, you're not the only one who struggles. I stepped back. No, I don't want a trophy. I want acknowledgement. For once, I want someone to say, Emily, we treated you like an afterthought and we were wrong. Silence.
He didn't say it.
Of course he didn't. He just scoffed, shoved his hands in his hoodie pocket, and muttered, Whatever. This is why no one invites you anywhere. And that was it. The final confirmation. I shut the door. A week later, I got a letter. From my mom. It was short. 3 paragraphs.
Typed.
We didn't mean to hurt you, but you took it the wrong way. We just thought you'd be overwhelmed and wouldn't enjoy it. We hope, in time, you'll forgive us. We love you. There was no apology. No accountability. Just a soft rewording of blame. And you know what? That was my closure. Not because it made me feel better, but because it showed me exactly who they were. So, I did something they didn't expect. I printed a copy of their letter, folded it in half, and wrote across the top, This is not love. Then I slid into a box. Inside that box were the cruise invoice, my childhood photo with Nathan, my first paycheck stub, the one I'd used to buy Dad's Father's Day gift, and the dolphin postcard they sent as a joke. I sealed it. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it out. I put it on the top shelf of my closet not to hold on to pain, but to remind myself what letting go actually looked like. For years, I thought standing up to people meant yelling, demanding change. But now I know sometimes real power is walking away and meaning it. I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I wasn't their emergency fund. I wasn't their scapegoat. I was done. Not broken. Not bitter. Just done. The silence after confrontation is different. It's not the kind of quiet that gives you peace. It's the kind that stares back at you like an empty room you used to love only now. The furniture's gone, and the lights don't work the same. After I sent the letter, after Nathan left my porch and Mom's typed paragraphs hit my inbox, the phone stopped ringing. I wasn't disowned. That would have been too clear. Instead, I was put on mute. No calls. No birthday message. No holiday invite. Just a casual disappearance, as if I was the one who'd left them. And in a way, I had. I left the performance. I left the role they'd cast me in since childhood. The fixer, the giver, the one who never asked for anything in return. At first, I waited for someone to ask how I was doing. My aunt, maybe. Or my cousin Jordan, who used to braid my hair at family cookouts. Instead, I got a Facebook message from Jordan that said, Hey, I heard what happened. I don't want to get involved, but I hope you're okay. Translation: I believe you, but not enough to stand beside you. And that was the pattern. People who claimed to love me went quiet. Not because they hated me, but because speaking up meant acknowledging the injustice. And most people? They're not built for discomfort. Even my best friend, Rena, didn't quite get it at first. Are you sure it wasn't a misunderstanding? She asked over coffee. You know your family's kind of awkward with emotions. I stared at my cappuccino. Rena, they left me out of my own gift. They let my brother replace me like I was a hotel room reservation. She winced. Okay, yeah, that's bad. I smiled tightly. Yeah, it is. But solitude isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it becomes a mirror. The more time I spent alone, the more memories resurfaced, ones I'd buried because they didn't seem important at the time. Like the time I broke my wrist at age 7. I'd fallen off my bike in the driveway. Nathan had been standing next to me, laughing, holding the last popsicle. When Mom came outside, I was crying, clutching my arm. Nathan was crying too, because he thought he'd get in trouble. Mom scooped him up first. I sat on the gravel, waiting for someone to notice my bone wasn't sitting right. Or the time in high school when I got into my first choice college and Dad said, "That's great, honey," before immediately turning to Nathan and asking if he'd applied anywhere. Little things. But little things add up. And once you start connecting the dots, you can't unsee the picture. I started journaling not because I'm poetic, but because I needed to hear myself without interruption. I wrote about the time I gave up a weekend trip with friends to babysit Nathan when he had the flu. I wrote about the Christmas I paid for half the presents under the tree while Nathan slept till noon. I wrote about the time I cried in the laundry room, silently, because my mom had said, "You're just more useful than emotional, and that's a blessing." Useful. That word had always felt like a compliment. Now it felt like a cage. The more I wrote, the more I understood. I hadn't just been betrayed in the present. I had been conditioned to expect betrayal. Conditioned to be grateful for scraps. To call neglect strength. To believe that love was earned by giving more, not receiving equally. And once you name that pattern, it loses its grip. I started to let go. I took down the family portraits. Not out of spite, but because I realized I wasn't in most of them anyway. I archived text threads with Mom. I canceled the automatic delivery of her favorite herbal tea that I'd been sending her for years. She never said thank you anyway. And I stopped offering explanations to people who didn't ask for my side of the story. I owed no one a breakdown. But something surprising happened during this loneliness. A few people did show up. My coworker Marissa, who had only ever talked to me about spreadsheets and office snacks, dropped off soup at my apartment one rainy evening. "I don't know what's going on," she said, "but you look like you need someone to show up." And that simple gesture? It cracked something open in me. Because that's what love looks like. Unrequested. Unconditional. Unannounced. I started to see the patterns everywhere. People who ask how you are without needing you to explain. People who remember your favorite tea. People who don't need blood to treat you like family. One night, I was scrolling through my phone and found a photo from 2 years ago, a game night with friends at my apartment. We were laughing, wine-stained teeth, chips on the floor, terrible lighting. And yet it felt more like family than any Thanksgiving I'd ever had. I cried. But not out of grief. Out of relief. Because I realized I had been loved all along. Just not by the people I spent so long trying to impress. One final thing happened that sealed everything for me. 6 months after the cruise, I got a text from Nathan.
"Hey.
Mom's birthday dinner is at 7. You coming?" No apology. No context. Just a casual invitation, as if nothing had happened. I stared at the screen. I typed, then deleted.
Typed again.
Finally, I sent,
"No.
I'll be having dinner with people who see me." He left me on read. And that was fine. The fallout of truth is messy. You lose people, but you also lose illusions.
And
that's liberation. I'd rather be alone in my truth than surrounded by people who need me small to love me. Healing doesn't come like a lightning strike. It's more like sunrise, slow, gradual, and easy to miss until you suddenly realize the dark isn't all around you anymore. After months of silence, solitude, and reflection, I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a weekend trip just for myself. No family obligations. No guilt. Just me, a tiny cabin in Vermont, and a journal. It wasn't glamorous. No Wi-Fi, no TV. But it was the first time I remembered what my own company felt like when it wasn't exhausted, anxious, or waiting for someone else's approval. I read books. I drank hot chocolate at 2 a.m. I stood outside in the snow barefoot just because I could. And I cried. Not because I was broken, but because I was free. That trip made me realize I'd been surviving, not living. So I started making tiny shifts. First, I found a therapist. Her name was Dr. Kelly, mid-40s, wore red lipstick, and swore just enough to feel real. In our first session, I sat on the edge of the couch, arms folded, ready to perform strength. She leaned back and said, "You don't have to be the reasonable one in here." I broke, because I'd never heard that before. Week after week, we unpacked the things I'd labeled not a big deal. The skipped birthdays. The thankless favors. The way my mother used silence as a weapon, and my father used Nathan's failures to guilt me into being better. Dr. Kelly helped me name things. Not to blame, but to understand. You weren't unlovable, she said one day. You were unseen. I wrote that on a post-it and stuck it to my mirror. It became my mantra. Slowly, my life began to fill with color again. I started joining small group meetups, nothing intense, just Saturday painting classes or potlucks with other women navigating complicated families. At first, I kept to myself. Then I met Lena, a former nurse with a laugh that could melt concrete. We clicked over watercolor palettes and stories of emotional exhaustion. One night, she said, "Let's make a pact. No more explaining our pain to people who choose not to hear it." We pinky swore over cheap wine. Lena became my chosen sister. At work, I stopped volunteering for every late shift. I started saying no, without explaining. When my manager asked me to pick up a project Nathan had dropped the ball on because, yes, he ended up working at my company, surprised, I smiled and said, "Sounds like a growth opportunity for him." I didn't get written up. I didn't get fired. The world didn't end. It just respected me more. I began spending holidays differently, too. The next Thanksgiving, I hosted a dinner with people who had shown up for me in small, honest ways. Rena, who'd apologized for minimizing my pain and cried on my kitchen floor. Marissa, who brought her famous cranberry stuffing and a new board game. Lena, of course, who showed up early and left last. We went around the table and said what we were thankful for. When it was my turn, I said, "I'm thankful for silence, the kind that feels safe. I'm thankful for being chosen. And I'm thankful I stopped begging for crumbs from tables I helped build." The room was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a hug. As for my family, they still send the occasional group text. Nathan invited me to his engagement party via a forwarded email. I didn't go. Mom sent a Christmas card with a smiley face sticker and no handwritten message. I recycled it. I no longer feel the need to reply out of guilt. And that's not cruelty. That's peace. Dr. Kelly once asked me, "What would your younger self think of the life you're building now?" I imagined little me sitting on that driveway with a broken wrist, waiting for someone to pick her up. I think she'd be proud. Not because I got revenge, but because I stopped waiting. I picked myself up, and I kept walking. These days, I keep fresh flowers in my apartment. Not for guests, for me. I light candles for no reason. I make toasts alone. And sometimes when I pass the mirror and see the post-it note still stuck there, "You were unseen," I add a second one below it. But not anymore. If you've made it this far, thank you.
Truly.
I don't know your name or where you're watching from. But if any part of this story felt like your own, then we already know each other in the most honest way possible. Maybe you've been the one who always showed up. The planner. The fixer. The helper. The person who put others on flights while your own life stayed grounded. And maybe, just maybe, you finally realized no one was coming to return the favor. That kind of betrayal is hard to explain, especially when it comes from people you share blood with. You feel ungrateful for being angry. You feel guilty for drawing boundaries. You feel like the bad guy for simply wanting to be loved equally. But here's what I've learned. Family is not made by DNA, it's revealed by behavior. The people who choose you, who listen, who show up, who say, "I see you," those are your people. Sometimes they're friends. Sometimes coworkers. Sometimes strangers on the internet who send a message saying, "You're not alone." So if you've been the one left behind, the one who paid the price, and still wasn't invited to the table, I want you to hear this. You're not invisible. You are not wrong for remembering. And you're not broken for still wanting love. You were taught to believe your worth was tied to usefulness, to silence, to performance. But I want you to start measuring your worth in something else.
Truth.
Not perfection. Not approval. Just truth. Who are you without the role you were forced to play? Who are you when you stop shrinking to make space for other people's comfort? If this story reminded you of your own, I invite you to share it. In the comments. In your journal. In your own video. Wherever feels safe. Because the more we say these things out loud, the less power silence holds over us. Your voice matters. Your version matters. Even if your family doesn't believe you. Even if they rewrite the story to make you the villain. Even if they pretend nothing happened. You know what happened. And that's enough. So here's what I'll leave you with. You can stop chasing people who only love you when you're useful. You can build a life that doesn't ask you to beg for scraps. You can find peace without permission. And if no one else has told you today, I'm proud of you. Proud of you for surviving, for choosing healing, for showing up, even when it hurt. If this story spoke to you, like, comment, subscribe. But more importantly, take up space. Your voice deserves to echo. Your truth deserves to breathe.